All right, it's about 10:03, so I think we can kick things off. And we'll kick off with a round of introductions. My name is Ryan Erickson Kulas. I'm the Director of Operations and Programs here at the Michelson 20mm Foundation. Been at the foundation for nearly 6.5 years now, which is wild to think about. And I kind of oversee the operations and running of our Spark Grant program. And I'll kick it to my colleague, Kaylin, to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Kayla Nagel. I'm the Senior Program Manager of Open Educational Resources here at the Michelson 20 Million Minds Foundation. I've been here for about 3.5 years, so I'm really excited for this round of Spark Grants.
So, a bit of an agenda for our conversation today. We'll first provide just an overview of our foundation and our work in general, so that y'all can get a better sense of the work that we do both within the OER space as well as more broadly. We will then talk about the specifics of our Spark Grant program. We'll review what the application process entails. We'll highlight some previous awardees as well so that y'all get a sense of the types of organizations and the types of projects that we generally fund. And then at the end, we'll open it up to Q&A. If you do have questions throughout this presentation, please use that Q&A feature in the webinar. And what we'll do is at the end, we'll go through and answer those. We might be able to answer some as we're going through live. It just kind of depends, but I'm not the best multitasker, so likely we'll hold to the end. So the Michelson 20mm Foundation was founded nearly 15 years ago, and we were founded by Dr. Gary K. Michelson. Dr. Michelson is a retired surgeon who made his fortune in inventing medical devices and then patenting those devices. He has since retired from medicine and has devoted himself to philanthropy. In addition to our foundation, Dr. Michelson also funds a variety of different initiatives focused on animal welfare, medical research, just to name a few. So certainly someone who's devoted himself to philanthropy overall. Our mission at 20mm is to accelerate progress towards a more just world and really seek to activate humanity's full potential through equitable educational and economic opportunities. And we do that through a variety of different initiatives within our organization, which I'll briefly mention again so you can get a sense of our work. As I mentioned, Dr. Michelson made his fortune in inventing and patenting those inventions. And so he's very passionate about bringing intellectual property education to the masses so that folks can capitalize on their IP similar to how he did. The Michelson the Michelson IP Institute is a branch of our organization that brings IP education to the masses. So we have curriculum, we have course modules that folks can integrate into their existing curriculums. We work very closely with business schools, maker spaces, et cetera, to provide them with resources free of charge that they are then able to utilize in their work. Another aspect of our work is the Michelson Impact Ventures group. This is where we do targeted for-profit investments where we are getting an equity stake in mission-aligned companies. These organizations are often intersecting with the core of our mission. There's a large amount of ed tech ventures that we support through this initiative, but the idea is looking to make access to higher education more affordable, more equitable, and having a better experience within that through our partnership with these companies. And then I'll briefly talk about 3 other initiatives, and these 3 initiatives all have their own Spark Grant funding cycles across the course of a calendar year. So if you feel like your work intersects with any of these, definitely recommend reaching out to us and we can connect you with the relevant program manager. Our digital equity initiative is our newest initiative, and it really sprung out of the pandemic where we saw folks move from learning on campus to learning remotely and realizing that the digital divide is a real thing and exists in California. And so we sought to bridge that divide for all Californians focusing on literacy when it comes to the digital space, making sure folks have access to devices, and our most recent focus is really on access to high-speed broadband. Our Smart Justice Initiative focuses on the intersection of the criminal justice system and the higher education system, and looks to support both currently as well as formerly incarcerated individuals as they look to either seek a degree or get into the workforce. And then our student basic needs work very much kind of aligned to a certain extent with a lot of our other areas of work, focuses on increasing persistence and graduation rates through systems change. We have a particular focus on pregnant and parenting students within that work and providing resources and support to those individuals so that they can be successful within the higher education space. And I'll turn over to Kaylin to talk a little bit about our OER work.
So our OER program was I guess it was the kind of the original program run by 20 Million Minds. It got its start when Dr. Michelson heard about students within the California community college system who were about to drop out of school because they couldn't afford their materials. He stepped in to help those students get what they needed, but we really need to fix the systematic causes of this problem to make sure that every student gets what they need to succeed. So we are looking to increase the number of courses and faculty that use open educational resources in higher education so students can have access to that affordable, equitable, and culturally relevant high-quality materials that are necessary for their education. And then our Spark Grant program is kind of unique in philanthropy, I think. We're looking to do a very specific thing. One, we are looking to fund programs that have a very high impact that may not be possible if they had to wait through traditional grant timelines and decision making. We are looking to do innovative, just-in-time grant making to meet urgent needs of organizations aligned with the specific focus areas that I'm going to lay out a little bit later in this program. And then we also want to make sure that people get the news really fast. So all projects will hear within 6 weeks of our call from the program's closing call. So after 6 weeks within our call for proposals closing, you're going to know. And oftentimes you'll know much sooner than that. And then the OER funding cycle opens March 3rd and closes March 17th. And we'll have a little bit more information on that in a bit. So our Spark Grant program is available to United States-based nonprofits. And while there are some opportunities to work nationally, all of the programs that we're looking to fund must also impact California. And there are some like focus areas that are exclusively California. And then we're looking for projects that provide scalable solutions that can make statewide or even broader impacts. And then I understand that there is a need for support to create OER materials. The goal of our program right now is to kind of hit some of those systematic changes. So we're not going to be looking to fund OER creation at this time. And then we are also welcome proposals where a Spark grant is part of a larger overall project with multiple funding streams. And then a little bit about what we're looking for specifically. We have our baseline criteria, the focus areas, the potential impact of the grant is something that we look for. We also look for measurability of impact, whether or not this project has a long-term sustainability plan or could like outlast the work, can outlast the individual program. And then also scalable projects are something that we really value. A little bit about baseline criteria. The grant ask is up to $25K. The grant has to cover specific self-contained milestones. Acceptable milestones include inflection points, things that maybe open a new foothold with a partner or a new pilot program, and then some things that we're not looking for when it comes to milestones include operating expenses, ongoing inventory, and general working capital. I think some of this will become a little bit clearer when we go over some of the past Spark Grant recipients, which I think kind of really underline some of these points very well. And then some of the things that we are looking at. So our focus areas are the specific areas that we are looking for within this Spark Grant. So the first two are entirely based in California, and the last three have a national scope, although they must also impact California. So we are looking for projects that support the implementation of the historic investment in the zero textbook cost degree program within the California Community College system. We are also looking for projects that mobilize student or faculty to pass OER supportive policies and textbook accessibility policies within the UC system, the California Community College system, and the Cal State system. And then on more of a national scope, but once again, would also have to impact California, projects that improve the quality and reach of OER marketing materials and outreach materials, particularly things that could help more under-resourced programs make the impact that they need in their campus or region. Also, we are looking for projects that research and conduct public education around automatic textbook billing with a focus on the student experience and student consumer protection. And then we are also looking for research into the impacts of existing policies, particularly public policies that relate to textbook accessibility, open educational resources, textbook price transparency at both the state and the federal level.
Thanks, Kellen. So some of the other things that we'll be kind of focusing on as we look to evaluate proposals is obviously what is the impact of that grant. So the number of individuals that are impacted, best case, worst case scenario, how likely is that project to be successful? We're going to be looking at the measurability of impact. And we actually ask our grantees to provide that information. So we'll ask for every proposal that there are 3 key performance indicators indicated, and we ask y'all to propose what those metrics would be. We also want to get a better sense of the timeline. I will say for context, generally what we see is a 6-month to 1-year timeline in the proposals that we fund. Sometimes we'll see something beyond where it stretches to kind of 18 months, but usually it's kind of within that 6 to 12-month period of time. We're also curious to learn a little bit more about the organization that will be leading the work. So getting a better sense of, who are the team members who are going to be contributing to this endeavor? What partners in the space are y'all working with that you feel would help to amplify the work? If you're a nonprofit, getting a better understanding of your business model, understanding, your existing resources, your various revenue streams. We do have this grant cycle open to nonprofits, obviously educational institutions, and we usually fund those dollars through your school's foundation. But just getting a better sense of kind of what that organizational structure looks like. And then I think Kaylin mentioned this, but scalability of the project. So we're curious to learn a little bit about, how this could scale and how this could inform public policy. We realize that the scalability might not come during this grant or during this grant period. And I think Kaylin will speak to some specific examples of projects that we funded in the past where it was a pilot program at a specific campus, but we saw the potential for that pilot program to be successful and then potentially scale across a region. And I would say, when we are evaluating proposals, we are more apt to look at organizations that are looking to have a regional impact or a statewide impact as opposed to a specific impact on their campus, particularly if there's not sort of line of sight into how the work on that campus could be scaled to other campuses. As Kellen mentioned, our portal will open on March 3rd and will remain open until March 17th. If you go to that website, and I will drop it in the chat right now, that is where the button that you will utilize to access our grant management platform, Submittable, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a second. One of the things we often get a question on is sort of, the amount of proposals that come in. Generally, we receive about 50 or so proposals during a Spark grant period. Of those 50 letters of inquiry, we generally will invite 25% or so to submit a full application, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then from there, we end up funding anywhere from 3 to 5 proposals, just depending on what the strength. You'll see on that site that I just dropped the link in, there are links right now to PDF versions of both the LOI and the full application. You will submit your proposal via Submittable, and it's very similar to a Google form, just a little bit more built out. But we wanted to provide those PDFs as references for you all, so that if folks want to start working on their materials in advance of March 3rd, they have the opportunity to do that. As I mentioned, Submittable is our grant management platform. So you'll create an account, you'll be available to do that on March 3rd. All communication regarding your proposal will occur via Submittable. If you have technical support issues, you can certainly reach out to us, but I would say Submittable is going to be your best option. And then I would strongly encourage you to safe list Submittable in your email client. Particularly educational institutions, that we have had instances where things end up in spam or quarantine or whatever. So just kind of wanted to flag that for folks. So this is the grant committee that will be evaluating proposals. In addition to Kaylin and myself, we have our Senior Director of Programs and Strategic Initiatives, Miguel Leon, as well as our CEO, Phil Kim, and our COO, Myra Lumbera, all of whom have been with the organization for, in some cases, over a dozen years. Kaylin, I'll throw it to you to talk a little bit about our Spark Community Advisors and how we incorporate them into our process.
So I'm really excited that we have been able to incorporate our Community Advisors program. It's just a fact that I work at an external philanthropy. I don't know what it's like to have to navigate the systems within a higher education institution. It's been over 10 years since I've had to use a textbook as a student, and I've never had to assign one. So it's really important that we incorporate the experiences, the expertise, and the perspectives of the communities that we are looking to work with into our decision-making and into the work that we do. So we invite members of the community, and we try to get a spread of California institutions, different types of roles within those institutions. And I am really committed to making sure that we always have a student to provide feedback on our focus areas, and also to provide feedback on individual grants. And then sometimes our community advisors are able to point to things like, hey, within this system, if they did X, Y, and Z, it could be even stronger. Or actually, I know a partner that they may not know of that maybe they could partner with. So they've been able to make our programs, and very often the projects that we work with, even better, which I'm very grateful for. So this round of Spark Grant Community Advisors includes Paula Santana, Executive Director of the Glendale College Foundation. Katie Wagman, she was a student fellow last year with the 20 Million Minds Foundation, but has been a textbook accessibility advocate within the UC system and nationally, both with our organization and before it, and now after it. And then Dr. Elaine Correa, Professor and Chair of CSU Bakersfield Department of Human Development and Child and Adolescent Family Services, where she also does an incredible amount of work within open educational resources. So I'm so grateful that we get to work with the three of them. And then a little bit about the process once it gets started. Within 6 days of submitting an LOI, you'll be notified if the proposal is going to advance. And then organizations that do advance will be asked to submit a full application. Finalists will then be reviewed by that Spark Grant Community Advisors. And within 6 weeks of the closing date, the grant committee will share their decisions. So this is kind of in a timeline form, if that's a little bit more helpful. And then I will say that I do encourage folks, particularly even before you submit an LOI, to set up a meeting with me. So I love to hear from folks before they submit an LOI, because sometimes it's a gut check on whether or not this fits within a focus area, or it is, hey, if you did X, Y, and Z, maybe it could be stronger. And there have also been occasions where maybe a project doesn't fit within the framework of a Spark grant, but after the Spark grant process has been over, we've been able to partner with them in other ways. So I have set aside time between now and the closing date for LOIs to have 30-minute meetings with community members to learn a little bit more about what they're doing, to answer questions that they might have, and to also just get to know them better. So if you would like to set up a meeting with me, this is not required, but it is highly encouraged. I've just dropped my calendar link into the chat. It'll also be on follow-up materials. Please go ahead, schedule a meeting with me. I'm setting aside time specifically to get to know you and the work that you're doing better. So a little bit about some prior OER Spark grantees, and this can give you a better idea of some of the things we're looking for. So one of our prior grantees was the U.S. Public Interest Research Group Education Fund. So this is an independent, nonpartisan group that stands up to powerful special interests in support of consumers and the public. So with their Spark grant, they created a report that analyzed the textbook industry's then new process of automatically billing students for their course materials, often known as inclusive access. They combed through 40 different contracts between institutions and bookstores and publishers, and were able to uncover clauses and other material that just wasn't really out there in the public before they did this. That work went on to inspire a lot of other work and help other people advocate to get a better deal on their campus or make better decisions for their communities. Spark is a nonprofit advocacy organization that supports systems of research and education that are open by default and equitable by design. They went on to do even more in the area of automatic textbook billing by creating inclusiveaccess.org, which provides resources for administrators, faculty, and students to learn more in a neutral way about automatic textbook billing programs. Before they created this website, really the only materials you could find about automatic textbook billing that weren't a consumer report was marketing materials from bookstores and publishers. So this provides a much more neutral point. And from that work, they've gone on to do things like build a massive contract library, so people kind of see what's going on in the fine print of these deals. And then a little bit about some of the other types of focus areas. So Creative Commons is a nonprofit organization that helps overcome legal obstacles to the sharing of knowledge and creativity to address some of the world's most pressing challenges. We funded them twice for two separate week-long Creative Commons certification boot camps in the Bay Area and Southern California. So these really fall within that supporting the implementation of the zero textbook cost degree programs. We were really excited to partner with the California Community College Academic Senate's OERI to do so, and to really help build that internal knowledge infrastructure to help the people executing ZTC degrees have the resources to understand the copyright licenses that underpin much of the OER world. And then in our most recent round of grant making, so Glendale Community College is a member of the California Community College system. They're a college right here in Southern California, actually less than a mile from where I live, which was kind of neat. And they also fit within that framework of supporting the rollout of the zero textbook cost degree programs. They are currently doing research. They're not yet done with it. I'm very excited to see the results that use their student information system to see whether or not creating easy to spot image-based markers for ZTCs, so just kind of like bringing that zero textbook cost marking within the online student schedule impacts student decision-making and experiences of finding and enrolling in these courses. When it comes, I think this really shows what we're looking for when we think scalability. So this project has not yet scaled. They're not yet finished with their project, and it's not part of their project to be the people that scale this, but 26 other community colleges in California use the same student information system. And so if they look at what's going on in Glendale and say, oh, this seems to have an impact, then they might be able to adopt similar systems to help students better find these courses within their schools. And then another one from this past round of Spark Grants. So Chabot College is another community college within California. They're collaborating with the Academic Senate's OER committee, once again, to develop a scalable pilot dashboard to track zero textbook cost adoptions. So the California Community College has started just doing a lot of really great work tracking how students move through their system. So they are working to incorporate that data and be able to track, how many students are taking zero textbook cost courses, which demographics of students are taking them. So you might want to know, for example, students that are older or maybe first generation college students. This dashboard will also help participating campuses identify gaps within the zero textbook cost degree system to help fill those and kind of flesh those out. This is a really great example of being able to have a meeting ahead of time and expand, because one of the things that we talked about in that meeting was, do you think other colleges might be interested in doing this? And they did some outreach, and 6 different community colleges are participating in this pilot grant program. And then just to answer a quick question in the chat, what is an image-based marker? So within the online course schedule, this would be a widget or a little indicator next to a course that is larger, easy to find, and right in the front page that marks as ETC. So it's likely going to be something like an open book with no money on it. So that way it's an image-based marker there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kaylin. I want to just quickly highlight some other Spark grantees in some of our other focus areas, because again, I think it gives you sort of ideas, a type of work that we are interested in funding and what we kind of find appealing. So Long Beach State University, we gave them a grant to develop a best practice model when it comes to a family-friendly campus, and that was out of their Pregnant and Parenting Students Initiative. They then worked with the Chancellor's Office to disseminate those materials to all CSU to ensure that campuses across the state had resources to support that particular population. Unite LA is a great example of our dollars going to fund work that other funders are also contributing towards. So they launched LA Deal, or the LA Digital Equity Action League. So essentially a regional consortium of nonprofits, advocates, et cetera, to help advocate for digital equity in and around Southern California. And so our dollars helped in the early planning process of what LA Deal would look like. And of course, they've gone on to receive funding from other foundations, state, federal institutions as well. The Forestry and Fire Recruitment Program, or FFRP, is a longtime partner of ours in our smart justice space. They provide career support to formerly incarcerated and currently incarcerated individuals who are looking to gain careers in wildland and forestry sectors. You actually may have seen them recently on The Daily Show. Obviously have played a large part in fighting and combating wildfires across the state, and most recently in the Southern California area. We supported their expansion to the Bay Area. They had already had a successful model built out within the Southern California area. Our dollars, combined with some other funders, helped expand to the Bay Area. And then UCI lifted. So this is another example of a pilot program that has since scaled. So at UCI, they developed a program that was the first UC to have a bachelor's degree granting program in a California state prison. Since UCI Lifted has launched, they've shared their learnings and their model with other institutions across the state. And so UC Riverside currently has a lifted program as well as others. So again, an example of it was not within the scope of their work to actually share that out and help others build, but we realized, hey, this is a great pilot program where others could learn from those efforts. And of course, another instance where our dollars combined with other funders to support their ongoing work. They now have funding through the state of California to continue that work. So a real validation, I think, of our early investment in the great work that they're doing. So that's kind of our presentation for today. We are happy to answer any questions. I know there have been a few that have already been dropped in both the chat and the Q&A. If you do have questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A, and then we'll have an opportunity to respond. As Kaylin mentioned, please take that opportunity to schedule some time with them. I'll drop both of our email addresses in the chat right now. They're pretty easy. They're just our name at 20mm.org. And so if you have specific questions, you can certainly email us as well. But really appreciate everyone taking the time to join us today. We'll pause for a bit to see if any questions come in, but otherwise, hopes folks have a wonderful rest of their day. Our presentation just must have been so good that the no questions have come in. Oh, it was just a thank you. You're welcome, y'all. Hope everyone has a good day. We will send a recording as well as these slides and the link to the scheduling link for Kaylin out in a subsequent email. So be on the lookout for that. And we'll talk to y'all later.